you there when they crucified our Lord?
Yes, we were there.
Were you there when they nailed him to the tree?
Yes, we were there.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
Yes, we were there.
And were you there when they said, this Jesus must die?
Yes, we were there.
Lord, at times it causes us to tremble when we consider the sorrow, pain, and suffering you so freely took upon yourself for us. As we follow you to the cross, we can't help but ask why this horrible thing must happen. How is it that the shouts of Hosanna have so quickly turned to shouts of crucify him? But deep down, we know. Deep down, we know whose sin causes your death. It is our sin, our rejection, our treason that brought you to Calvary. Yes, we were truly there. We humbly pray that your love, forgiveness, and mercy that so greatly offended us may now be extended to us. Grant that we may die to our sin and so be raised to new life with you. We ask all this and everything else in the words you taught us to pray. Our
Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Take me and
A man went forth to die.
You may see. He entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost."
I will never forgive Jesus for that. Of all of the people he could have stayed with, why Zacchaeus? Of all the inhabitants of Jericho, Zacchaeus was the worst possible choice. Zacchaeus was a traitor, a turncoat. He had sold out to the enemy. And to top it all off, he was getting rich in the process. You've got to hand it to the Romans. They are as smart as they are cruel. They knew how much we Israelites hated paying their stinking taxes. Now, no one likes taxes, but it's twice as bad when the money goes to the empire that has conquered your country and now occupies it. And so, who do the Romans get to collect their taxes? Do they send in Roman tax collectors? No. They hire our people to do their dirty work for them. And how do they pay these dirty traitors? Tax collectors can charge whatever they get away with. And after they send in what Rome expects, they get to keep whatever's left. No questions asked. What sort of people would help the enemy and steal from their own people at the same time? I'll tell you, greedy pigs. Pigs who are out to make an easy buck, even if it means working for the Romans and stealing from your own people. And that's exactly the kind of person Zacchaeus is. Someone who betrayed his own people, happily got rich off their toil and labor, and through it all helped keep the Romans in power. And oh, how rich he became in the process. He admits it himself. He promises to give half of his possessions to the poor and repay all those he's defrauded 4 times as much. Where do you think he got all that money in the first place? He got it from us. He's cheated us and robbed us for years, while all the time he's lived high and mighty. And now he thinks he can make it all better by giving back part of what he's stolen. He makes me sick. It makes me sick even to think about it. And now, how does he get repaid for all this evil? What's his punishment for selling out his own people? Jesus declares him saved. Of all people, Jesus says salvation has come to Zacchaeus. It's not right, and it isn't fair. Jesus has no right to say Zacchaeus will be saved. Zacchaeus is the worst kind of sinner. Jesus is way out of line. It's really kind of dangerous. Something should be done about him. We cannot stand for this. This Jesus must die.
Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid when he called her over and said, "Woman, you are sick," when he laid his, I can't see this right. When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this donkey, this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that he was doing.
I resent being called a hypocrite. I was just doing my job. I was the leader of the synagogue. I had to say something. I wasn't the one in the wrong. Jesus was the one making trouble. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking all Jesus did was heal this poor woman. How could that be wrong? It isn't that Jesus that he did not heal her. It's when he healed her. He healed her on the Sabbath. Healing is considered work, and work is plainly forbidden on the Sabbath. Now, that's not my idea. I didn't come up with that idea. God did. It's the third commandment. Quote, "Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath. To the Lord your God you shall not do any work." This Jesus has no right going around breaking God's commandments whenever he feels like it. This may sound harsh, but it isn't really. Following God's commandments gives order and structure to our lives. What would happen if people just decided to stop following the fifth commandment? You shall not kill. Society would be filled with chaos, and that's why something as simple as healing on the Sabbath must be stopped. If that kind of thinking spreads, it can lead to all kinds of trouble. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not upset that Jesus healed this poor woman. It was a great act of kindness and an impressive demonstration of God's healing power. But not on the Sabbath. Why couldn't he have just waited a few hours to heal her? Soon the Sabbath would have ended, and then everything would have been fine. She's been this way for 18 years. What would a few more hours really make? If he had just waited, we could have avoided all this trouble. But for whatever reason, Jesus did not wait. He just forged ahead, breaking God's law, ignoring our tradition, making a mockery of our way of life. And not only that, he drove a wedge between those of us in authority and the common people. Those of us with positions of leadership had no choice but to question his acts. It's our job to defend the tradition. But the common people are so swept up in Jesus' teachings and healings, they can't see the larger picture. They don't see how dangerous this Jesus is. We must put a stop to this. Jesus cannot be allowed to continue to cause trouble. He is dangerous. Jesus must die.
But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you.
I can't believe this is happening. My teenage son has just come home spouting about some new philosophy that's bound to get him in trouble. Those of you who have parents of teenagers will understand what I'm talking about. You know how impressionable teenagers are. They're always exiled about whatever the newest craze, no matter how crazy it is. One of the toughest jobs in the world has got to be raising kids and keeping them on the right track. The last thing we need is some crazy preacher filling our kids' heads with things we need, with new revolutionary ideas, especially dangerous ideas. What kind of dangerous ideas, you ask? How about this for starters? Love your enemies? Do good to those who hate you? Pray for those who abuse you. Can you believe it? That's the kind of ideas my kids are coming home with. And if that's not bad enough, this crazy preacher is telling my kids that if someone hits them, they should just stand there and get hit a second time. He says if a thief steals your coat, take off your shirt and give him that as well. And then my favorite, give to everyone who begs. Can you believe it? He tells them to give to beggars. There's nothing worse than walking down a big city street and seeing all those beggars. And you know that whatever you give them won't make a bit of a difference. It's just like throwing your hard-earned money away. If I've told my children once, I've told them 1,000 times. Give beggars sympathy, not money. But do they listen to what we teach them? No, they'd rather listen to some preacher who doesn't have anything to give away. They'd rather listen to someone who sums up his philosophy like this: do to others as you would have them do to you. Can you believe that? This guy's got it all backwards. It's supposed to be, do to others what they do to you. I have no trouble being good to those who are good to me. And that's what I've taught my children. But this idea of loving your enemies and giving without getting back, that's crazy. I don't want my children throwing their lives away. I want my children to be happy and successful. And like it or not, that means you've got to be tough. You've got to watch out for yourself. Take what's yours and fight for your rights. You know, this really ticks me off. I try to raise my kids to be responsible, successful people, and then this Jesus comes along and fills their heads with all this sorts of mush. This Jesus is dangerous. Someone should do something about him. We can't just sit around and let him teach our children this kind of stuff. This Jesus must be silenced. This Jesus must die.
Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now, in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again, he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are those who accuse you? Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again."
A gross miscarriage of justice took place that day. I was among the Pharisees who brought that shameful woman to Jesus. We knew it was his custom to go and teach at the temple, and we were sure we would find him there. And now we finally had a perfect opportunity to clear up all this confusion. It's one thing to talk about forgiving sinners. It's another to deal with a sinner who was caught in the act. We were sure Jesus couldn't weasel his way out of this one. Once and for all, we would make him acknowledge that sinners must pay. Everything was going perfectly at first. The adulterous woman never once denied her guilt, never once even begged for mercy. Like the rest of us, she knew she was wrong. She knew she deserved punishment. God's law must be upheld. Everything was going perfectly. Even Jesus made no reply at first. He just bent over and started drawing on the ground. At last, the Greek teacher had nothing to say. There was no way to get out of this one. This woman deserved death, period. When Jesus finally did speak, I thought we had won for sure. He said, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." He admitted she deserved death. We had won. Jesus couldn't deny the law this time. I started looking around for a stone to carry out the judgment. It was then that I realized something was wrong. The rest of the scribes and the Pharisees looked uncomfortable. I couldn't believe my eyes. They weren't going to let this stop them, were they? We are righteous people. We follow the law. We make the proper sacrifices. We do what God expects of us. We had every right to judge this woman and then carry out the judgment. We were not caught sinning. She was. Then things went bad to worse. Everyone started walking away. These people who had done everything in their power to follow God's law had been chased off by Jesus' trickery. Maybe none of us was completely without sin. Nobody's perfect. But we were surely better than this evil woman before us. It was all I could do to keep from shouting at my colleagues to stop. "What's the matter with all of you?" I wanted to say. "This woman deserves death." Don't let a little case of conscience cloud your judgment. Compared to her, we are without sin. But I said nothing. I just stood there as they all walked away. I finally left too. I couldn't believe this Jesus won again. Now more than ever, I know how much he must be stopped. He can't go on making a mockery of our law and accusing good people of being sinners. He's dangerous. This Jesus must die.
Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods and the pigs that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate.
This parable wrecked my life. I'm serious. It wrecked my life. Let me tell you how. My father and I were there when Jesus told this parable you call the prodigal son. And it was almost as if he was talking about our family. My father has 2 sons, myself and my younger brother, and the similarities unfortunately end there. My younger brother is a wasteful, spoiled, undisciplined, good for nothing. Of course, it took my father years to admit this. In the beginning, Dad always had an excuse for why his little boy didn't measure up. Soon my brother didn't even have to make excuses. Dad would forgive him before he asked. And of course, I played my part in our little family drama. I was the responsible one. I did my share of the work and my brother's share. Dad finally did come to his senses. Somehow my father found the courage to admit to himself that this couldn't continue. He knew it wasn't right, And so Dad kicked my brother out. Those were the good days. We hired someone to take his place for the first time in years, and work started getting done. Schedules were met, productivity rose, everything was great. After time, even my father seemed to accept the loss of his son in exchange for efficiency and increased profits. But then it happened. Jesus came along. My father and I just happened to be there when Jesus was teaching. He started telling parables. One about a lost sheep, the second about a lost coin. Then Jesus started his third parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. That was the beginning of the end. When the parable was over, my father was in tears and ran off mumbling something about his poor baby. My father came home late that night. He was half carrying my brother, who was too drunk to walk by himself. Before I could say anything, Dad announced that my brother was home to stay. That was all 2 years ago. We went bankrupt a few months after my brother came back. My father fell sick and soon died because we couldn't afford a doctor. My brother disappeared soon after, and I haven't seen him since. And me, I now work for minimum wage on someone else's farm. And all because Jesus and his parable. You know, I don't know if my father really even understood what Jesus was getting at in the parable. Jesus was talking about how God treats sinners, not how fathers treat their sons. It makes me angry every time I think about it. Just look what that kind of thinking did to me. Can you imagine what would happen if God really forgave sinners like that? What was that Jesus thinking? How could he say such things? Someone should stop him. He's dangerous. This Jesus must die.
took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes were assembled. Peter had followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards, warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made with hands.'" But even on this point their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But he was silent and did not answer them. Again, the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power, and coming with the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your decision?" All of them condemned him as deserving death.
For a moment there, I thought our case against this Jesus might not hold up. We lined up so many witnesses to testify against him, but surely 2 of them would agree on some horrible thing he had said or done. But we were having no such luck. None of their testimony was the same. I was afraid we were going to have to let him go. Only Pilate would not have him executed if we couldn't pin something solid on him and back it up with at least 2 witnesses. And if ever anyone needed to be killed, Jesus did. I'd been hearing for months about all the trouble he was causing, stirring up the crowds, arguing with religious authorities, even claiming to be the Messiah. That's exactly what I needed. Some would-be Messiah to stir up the masses and start an armed rebellion against Rome. Can you imagine the bloodshed and the destruction? Not to mention the religious and political consequences. The last thing I needed was some blaspheming rabble-rouser to mess up everything I had worked for. But now that we had finally brought him to trial, everything seemed to be slipping away. We were out of witnesses. We had proved nothing. We would have to let him go. I knew I had only had one more chance, and I knew it was a long shot. But what other choice did I have? I asked him straight out, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" I didn't expect him to answer. I assumed he would just remain silent. I couldn't believe my ears when he answered, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power, and coming with the clouds of heaven." It was more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams. Right there in front of everyone, he openly admitted to being both Messiah and God's Son. We needed no more evidence. We needed no more witnesses. Pilate would have to do something now. Pilate would have to kill anyone who claimed to be king or God. And this Jesus had just claimed to be both. Pilate would never know what a favor he was doing me when he sentenced this Jesus to death. Finally, all my troubles would be over. Jesus' reputation as a teacher, healer, and miracle worker would slowly fade away. His ragtag followers would disband. And all this nonsense would come to an end. Order would be restored. Jesus has caused enough trouble. Something has to be done about it. He's dangerous. He has to be stopped. He has to be silenced. There's no doubt about it. This Jesus must die.
death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness fell over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus cried with a loud voice and said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." And when all the crowds who had gathered there for this spectacle saw what had taken place, they returned home, beating their breasts. But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things.
Can you believe this guy? Even as he hangs on the cross dying, he extends God's grace and mercy to those who don't deserve it. Who is he to say, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise"? Doesn't he get it? Doesn't he realize that's exactly the kind of talk that got him crucified? We have had enough of his offering God's grace and mercy to the undeserving. He can't be allowed to continue forgiving sinners like that. What about us? What about us, good religious people? What about those of us who try as hard as we can to do what God expects of us? We might not be perfect, but at least we try. Don't we deserve something for at least trying? I hate to admit it, but I resent the fact that Jesus freely offers sinners what I have worked so hard to earn. Now I understand why so many people thought Jesus must die. His notion of God's forgiveness really is offensive to those of us trying our best to earn God's salvation. And I always assumed bad people thought Jesus must die. All of a sudden, that other thing Jesus said from the cross
He accepts. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. I never thought that they included me. It makes you wonder if we are as good as we think we are. We obviously need as much forgiveness as anyone else Jesus forgave. But it's too late now. Jesus is crucified. He's dead and buried. Without knowing it, we put to death the one God sent to save us. But we can't undo what we've done. It's out of our hands. I guess it's all up to God now.
Sometimes it causes me to